It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. A former Mauritanian head of state, Ould Abdelaziz, convicted in 2023, submits his candidacy at the last minute for June elections. Benin's government temporarily lifted a ban on crude oil export from Niger after engagement with Chinese authorities.
This means that Benin has no intention of harming the interests of the state of Niger. However, it is important to note that the temporary and provisional authorization should not be used as a guideline for normal pipelines that must be operated in a normal framework of relations between states.
Nigeria's government to investigate plan to marry over 100 female orphans.
I want to let the Honorable Speaker of House in Niger State to know that this is totally unacceptable by Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and by the government. Totally unacceptable.
And Ghana's Minority Caucus attributes the free fall of local currency to corruption. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us, and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Well, let's begin in Mauritania, where at the last minute, the former head of state, Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, submitted his candidacy to the Constitutional Council on the evening of May 15 for the presidential election on June 29. His spokesperson confirmed that some sponsorship were missing, but that he hoped to be able to complete his file within 48 hours. Abdelaziz was sentenced in December 2023 at first instance of 5 years in prison on corruption and enrichment charges. As for the question of his civil rights, he would still enjoy them, according to his lawyer, since the former president appealed his conviction. In Mauritania, contenders for the presidential election of June 29 had until May 15 at midnight to submit their candidacy files with the necessary sponsorships, 100 municipal councillors, including 5 mayors. 8 candidates submitted their applications, among them the current president, Mohamed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazani, the candidate of the first opposition party, Tawassul, the opponent, Biram De Abeid, and a last one who caused a surprise, former president Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz. Well, still talking politics now. In Guinea, former personalities are speaking out after the announcement of a slippage in the timetable for the organization of elections to return power to civilians. Former Prime Minister and United Nations diplomat Francois Lucien calls on the ruling military to respect the timetable agreed with ECOWAS. He warns Prime Minister Bauri against the consequences of a much deeper political crisis. Abdullah Hassan has more details in this report filed in by our correspondent, Channel Alpha Ibrahim Abadi.
Back in Guinea after a long stay in Europe, former UN diplomat Francois Lucien says he is surprised by the announcement of a slide in the timetable for the organization of elections to end the military transition. He says the transition will end in December this year, and if there is a slip, it will be discussed at the level with the political players. The Prime Minister was reckless to make such a statement. Lucien Fall, who also served as a Prime Minister of Guinea, warns current Prime Minister Bauri against a decision that could tip the country into a deeper political crisis. He says, "We are at the end of the transition, but it is obvious that if we want to maintain peace and stability in this country, we have to avoid a reoccurrence of the September 2009 tragedy, and Bauri knows this. And so, if ever there are problems one day, Bauri will be responsible. I believe that it is in his interest to respect the commitments that have been made. This transition must come to an end at the end of this year." In Guinea, the socio-political players demanding the organization of elections by the end of this year, as agreed with the Economic Community of West African States, are calling on the sub-regional body to intervene.
Abdullah Hassan voiced a report as filed in by our Conakry correspondent, Channel Alpha Ibrahim Abadi. And elsewhere, authorities in Niger, under the aegis of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the People, CNSP, welcomed an American delegation on Wednesday. The purpose of the U.S. delegation's arrival in Niamey is to discuss a safe and coordinated withdrawal of the 1,000 American troops stationed in Niger. Leading the team is Christopher Meyer, Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict, at the United States Department of Defense. Francis Boniface completes the story.
This is the first official high-level meeting between Niamey and Washington officials after Niger denounced the defense agreement between the two parties last month. The CNSP in a press release stated the mission of the U.S. delegation to include the presentation of a draft withdrawal plan of American forces from Niger. The military authorities announced that the discussions in collaboration with military experts will ensure that the withdrawal takes place in the best possible conditions, guarantee security, and respect the deadlines. While the delegation meets with the junta leaders on the roundtable about the soldiers' exit plan and duration, Russia is gaining a foothold in Niger after the Kremlin recently deployed equipment and instructors to Niamey. For some regional experts, the United States is losing its influence in the wider Sahel with the departure of the American troops from Niger, a strategic partner in the fight against terrorism. Thousands of Nigerians had called for the expulsion of U.S. troops in the country following a successful anti-French protest that eventually led to the departure of troops from former colonial power France, which deployed its army to assist Niger in the fight against insurgents.
Francis Boniface reporting there. Meanwhile, the Beninese authorities have agreed to temporarily lift the ban on crude oil export from Niger via its port. Cotonou also authorized the loading of the first ship to transport oil from Niger to China. The decisions were taken after the visit of a Chinese delegation to Benin amid a diplomatic row between the two neighboring countries. Etiso has the details.
The Chinese delegation, led by the Chinese ambassador to Benin, held talks with Beninese President Patrice Talon. The delegation was made up of officials from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and China National Petroleum Corps (CNPC), the Chinese company in charge of the Agadem oil market in Niger, which arrives in Benin and is then exported to China. The Chinese visit to Cotonou aimed to ease tensions between Benin and Niger over the export of oil from Niger via Benin. After discussions, the Beninese government temporarily lifted the ban it imposed a week ago. Seydou Adambi is Benin's Minister of Energy.
Benin has agreed to play its part in all the agreements signed in the case of this project. We have therefore decided to authorize the loading of the first ship that is secured in our waters. This means that Benin has no intention of harming the interests of the state of Niger or those of our common partner, the CNPC, CNODC, the Waku House of Merit. However, it is important to note that the temporary and provisional authorization should not be used as a guideline for normal pipelines that must be operated in a normal framework of relations between states.
Pending the definitive lifting of the ban on the shipment of Nigerian oil via Benin, Cotonou has announced the holding of an interstate meeting on the issue at the request of the Chinese authorities. After Benin, the Chinese delegation will also travel to Niger to meet with the military rulers.
Etiso filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, back in Senegal, President Bashir Diomaye Faye is expected in Nigeria and Ghana as part of his diplomatic agenda, a strategic visit which aims to consolidate cooperative links between Senegal and the two countries. The new head of state, Diomaye Faye, will be received by his Nigerian counterparts, Bola Tinubu and Ghanaian Nana Akufo-Addo. A press release from the Council of Ministers of Wednesday indicated that President Faye will make a friendship and working visit to Nigeria and Ghana, respectively, on May 16 and 17, 2024. Furthermore, the head of state during the Council of Ministers took stock of the visit made by his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame to Senegal from May 11 to 13. According to the release, the friendship visit by the Rwandan president was punctuated by fruitful exchanges on cooperation between the two countries. The Ministry of Women Affairs in Nigeria says it is investigating a plan by a lawmaker in central Niger State to marry off some 100 female orphans of unknown ages later this month. Speaker of the North Central Niger State Assembly, Abdullah Malik Sarakindaji, announced a mass wedding last week but called off the ceremony following widespread outrage. Minister of Women Affairs Uju Kennedy Ohaneye, speaking to journalists in Abuja, condemned the plans.
I heard over the news yesterday and all over the internet where a particular legislator, being the Speaker of Niger State, mentioned as part of his constituency project to marry out and pay dowries for 100 orphans who were displaced by bandits in their village. I want to let the Honorable Speaker of house in Niger State to know that this is totally unacceptable by Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and by the government. Totally unacceptable. The future of the children to come out of that marriage must be considered. So I have gone to court. I have written him a letter. I've written a petition to the police, the IG of police, and I have filed a case for injunction to stop him from whatever he's planning to do on the 24th until such a time a thorough investigation is carried out on those girls, find out whether they gave their consent, find out their ages, find out the people marrying them, who are they.
On his part, Speaker of the Niger State Assembly, Abdul Malik Saranjaji, said his support to his constituency following an appeal for wedding funding by local traditional and religious leaders. The mass wedding had been scheduled for May 24.
I'm disappointed with her action, and as such, I'm making it known to everyone now that support I intend to give, I'm withdrawing it. For the marriage of those orphans, I've withdrawn. The parent can have the support. If they wish, let them go ahead and marry them out. If they wish, let them use it for whatever purpose they want to. I've done it in good faith, and I will continue to do it.
Despite national laws prohibiting it, forced arranged marriage is a common phenomenon in Nigeria, especially among rural communities in predominantly northern, where religious and cultural norms such as polygamy favor the practice. Well, staying in Nigeria, the labor unions comprising the Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress have walked out of the ongoing minimum wage negotiations with the government and organized private sectors, angered by the 48,000 naira proposal by the federal government as the national minimum wage. The labor unions described the offer as ridiculous. The NLC President Joe Ajero explained that the government is not serious about negotiating with the labor on the new minimum wage. He explained that the EFG does not have the necessary data to negotiate with labor. On April 14, the organized labor demanded 615,000 naira, about $400, as a new minimum wage for workers to cope with the many economic realities and the high cost of living in Nigeria. The new minimum wage was reached after consultations between the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC), according to the NLC President Joe Ajero.
The government's proposal of a paltry 48,000 naira as the minimum wage does not only insult the sensibilities of Nigerian workers, but also falls significantly short of meeting our needs and aspirations. In contrast, organized private sector proposed an initial offer of 54,000. Though it is worth noting that even the least paid workers in the private sectors receive 78,000 naira. As clearly stated by the organized private sector, highlighting the stark disparity between the proposed minimum wage and prevailing standards, further demonstrating the unwillingness of the employers and government to faithfully negotiate a fair national minimum wage for workers in Nigeria. So I think maybe they should go back to drawing board. And of course, between now and the end of the month is enough time.
And also President Joe Ajero speaking there. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. The former Mauritanian head of state, Ould Abdelaziz, convicted in 2023, submits his candidacy at the last minute for June elections. Beninese government temporarily lifted the ban on crude oil export from Niger after engagement with Chinese authorities. Nigeria's government investigates plan to marry over 100 female orphans. And still ahead in the news, Ghana's minority caucus attributes the free fall of the local currency to corruption. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube, and Facebook. And to some financial matters now, the depreciation of Ghana's local currency, the cedi, is causing a stir among professionals and across the different sectors of the economy. The minority in parliament, which has voiced its concerns, is attributing the free fall of the cedi to corruption and off-budget expenditure. The local currency has lost ground to the major trading currencies like the US dollar, euro, and the pound sterling. As WDR's NADI report, analysts are projecting an exchange rate of 18 cedis to $1 by the end of the year.
The Ghana cedi for years has struggled against the major currencies in the world. Currently, a dollar is selling at 14 cedis 90 pesos on the forex market, which is significantly up from the 10 cedis 97 pesos it was sold for the same period in May 2023. Addressing the media in Parliament, Minority Leader Dr. Cassiel Atofosun cited, among others, off-budget expenditures as well as low production levels of cocoa as some of the reasons for the free fall of the cedi. The NDC MP has decried the impact the development is having on businesses and individuals.
There's an increase on budgeted fiscal spending, which is fueling demand for exchange rates. Simple put, the government is spending off budget. So much that those that they are paying are using the money to purchase US dollars, and that is why the dollar is depreciating. There's again lack of confidence in the banking sector, resulting in currency substitution. Moreover, we've seen a lower cocoa production, resulting in the lowest export in 2 decades due to the mismanagement of the cocoa sector. There's an uncontrolled corruption, obviously, in the President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia's government.
The minority leader further argued that the over $300 million third tranche of the IMF bailout expected by government to shore up the cedi will not be available until by July, giving challenges with securing an MOU with external creditors.
The prior action for the IMF to go to their board has to do with not an agreement, the preparation of an MOU between Ghana and the official creditors committee. And if they are to see the MOU somewhere around June ending, they will be able to go to their board. The earliest Ghana can get that tranche coming in will be first week of July. But the question is, $360 million coming in July. From now till July, what will happen to our free fall of the cedi? The cedi can only continue to depreciate.
At the moment, some analysts are projecting 18 cedis to $1 by end of year. Meanwhile, Bloomberg has categorized the Ghana cedi as the third worst performing currency in Africa. For WADR, Nadidi Titi, Accra.
For the first time in Liberia post-COVID-19, more than 50,000 12th graders are writing this year's West African Senior School Certificate exams. The examination, which runs from May 15 to June 7, 2024, is a standardized test in West Africa that allows the graduation of students from secondary schools to higher education institutions. The BDR's Nalitin Popper has a report.
The increase in the number of students writing the exams this year shows a significant growth in enrollment post-COVID-19. At the start of the exams, Lawrence Akwe, an examiner, explains the measure put in place to curb examination malpractice.
We make sure that the hall was arranged and we're able to talk to the students this morning, so they are doing their best. The ones going on along with the Liberia Junior High exam and the primary exam, so we are expected to climax the whole process by the 7th of June latest.
For the 12th graders, they are confident of a promising outcome that is a gateway to higher education and admission to colleges or universities.
Everything was okay. Once you've been in 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, you definitely know something else.
Each and every one of us to make it our own business to follow every criteria set up for the exam.
While they maintain a positive attitude during the exams, the head of WAEC Liberia, Gleb Boto, is warning the students against engaging in any misconduct.
We want to appeal to our candidates that will be doing the tests. Don't pay what we call in Liberia flexibility fees. If you pay flexibility fee, you are paying for your failure. There is nothing wrong with 2 or 3 students coming together to study. We are discouraging the candidates from carrying foreign materials into the exam hall. We are discouraging the candidates from carrying mobile phones into the exam hall.
The West African Senior School Certificate examination is an international examination administered in 5 countries, including Liberia, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and the Gambia. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
Well, we head back to Accra as we join Nadidi Tete for the Newspaper Review.
Hello there, and welcome to the Newspaper Review segment with me, Nadidi Tete, coming to you live from Accra. Let's start off with the biggest newspaper in the country, the Daily Graphic newspaper. The front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper holds duty bearers accountable journalists told at African Media Convention. Also here on the front page, we will restore Galamsey lands and forests. That is a promise being made by the flag bearer of the NDC and former President John Dramani Mahama. Also here on the front page, FinTech Summit highlights investment opportunities in Africa. And MTN calls for rethink of tax structure. This is coming on the back of concerns by the various telcos that they are overly taxed and it inhibits their expansion drive. Now to the Daily Guide newspaper front page, 70,000 smart tablets deployed to schools. And also here, government releases 2 million Ghana cedis for kidney patients. And another headline here, Imani peddles falsehood, according to the Electoral Commission. So Imani and the Electoral Commission have been having a go at each other on various issues. First, this was on the disposal of electoral equipment, and the latest one is on the disenfranchisement of residents of 4 areas, Central Kofi, Akpafo, Likpi, and Lolobi. In the 2020 elections, they were denied the rights to vote in the parliamentary primaries. Let's move on to other newspapers. Banner headline on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, $100 million boosts for micro, small and medium-scale enterprises, MSMEs, to promote agric, manufacturing, ICT and tourism. Other stories here on the front page of the Ghanaian Times, government to grant tax exemptions on raw materials for local manufacturing of drugs, as well as medical supplies, as according to the finance minister, and forum to promote Africa Media Landscape opens in Accra. The Daily Statesman newspaper, front page, you have my full blessing as son. Gonja King assures Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. Also on the front page of the Daily Statesman newspaper, Akufo-Addo urges women judges to set precedents that protect the vulnerable. And Ghana Gas denies external influence in GPP2 project award. And that'll be it for the newspaper review segment. It's back to you now. My name is Nadiri Tete.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, the exportation of crude oil from Niger via the Beninese port may have resumed to end a diplomatic rift, but this isn't the case on the other side, as Niger is yet to open its borders. Could also authorize the loading of the first ship to transport oil from Niger to China. Experts see this decision as welcoming following the visit of a Chinese delegation to Benin amid a diplomatic row between the two neighboring countries. Many also worry that there may be other issues the Nigerian authorities are not letting out, and what could this be? Well, Austin Aigbe, a governance expert and a Newslink contributor, weighs in on this.
Well, I think it's an important thing to actually commend Benin for the action they've taken to actually allow China to pass through with the crude oil. But it is important to state that, as I did also say earlier, that China, whose business interest it is for that crude to be moved from Benin, will do everything possible to make sure it happens. So one of these is exactly what they've done now, to negotiate with Benin. And I hope that with this action taken by Benin, Niger will do the needful by opening the border. But we know why Niger will not open the border. It's clear why Niger will not open the border. But the business interest of China to Niger will force Niger. This is international politics. I thought this is their international, their foreign policy. We have to show that kind of goodwill to Benin by opening up that border between Niger and Benin. Because sincerely, I think the Benin are suffering hugely or more than what Niger could suffer by that blockade. And it's important that now that Benin has showed that grace, Niger should reciprocate the same gesture and move forward quickly. Because this is likely to develop further. The investment of China, you recall I made a comment the last time that the huge investment of China will not let go away. Left alone for Niger, they would rather go to Togo and pass through Togo. But who bears the consequence? In taxation or economics, somebody to bear that incident of the huge investment in the pipeline project. And China cannot just afford to build it and not use it. The Chinese will use it, and Benin will supply it. It's a deal that has been signed, and Niger will not want to back down. there's a connection between Chinese in Niger. It is coming from Russia. Russia is the access point for economic interest of China in this particularly in the Sahel region. Since Russia do not have all of the resources to invest directly, so they are using the conduit pipe, which is China, to then go in while they clear the ground military-wise, and the Chinese come in to siphon off the military resources.
But do you think there may be another issue the Nigerian authorities are not letting out, especially after mentioning that they would want to see the French forces exit Benin? Do you think this is the case?
Sincerely, I must commend Benin for not going the route that the Nigerians are going. I must commend Benin. What right, what audacity Nigerians will be telling Benin to expel foreign troops when they have a Russian troop they've introduced to the region. Russia had no historical background in our region. You have introduced Russia to a region, and you are asking another sovereign state to expel a foreign troop because of your dispute or because of your anger. I mean, I had initially supported the Benin position, but I also support them now for opening up the border as a show or as a sign of seniority, as a sign of maturity.
Aten Aigbe is a governance expert. Well, here is Anglo Janko Sport News.
Hello, very warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Ghana's under-17 team, the Black Starlets, kick off their campaign in the 2024 Rival Zone B Under-17 Championship with an emphatic 5-1 win over Cote d'Ivoire on Wednesday, according to CAF official website. Led by former international star Larry Kingston, the Black Starlets showcased their talent and ambition, leaving fans at the edge of their seats at the University of Ghana Stadium in Accra. From the opening whistle, Ghana asserted their dominance, with Joseph Nabil leading the charge with a superb brace in the first half. The Black Starlets continued their onslaught in the second half as Godfrey Strapong, Have Bava and Mark Kawaga each found the back of the net to seal a resounding victory for Ghana. Meanwhile, defending champions Nigeria face a formidable challenge in Group B, where they will clash with Burkina Faso, Togo and Niger. And in basketball, Rivers Hoopers concluded their outing at the Sahara Conference of the 2024 Basketball Africa League Bowl with a 4-2 record following a 73-62 loss against former bowl champions Tunisia's US Monastir. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maruju for the technical support. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope with Abdullah Hassan. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to